has been undergoing persecution over the past decade. The human rights situation for women and children in India is abysmal. Despite tremendous public outcry against crimes against women and children, such as rape, sexual violence, gender-based harassment, and female infanticide happening unabated in India, the state of the Republic of India has been either unwilling or unable to curtail these crimes. India is the most dangerous country for sexual violence against women. According to the Thomson Reuters Foundation, a 2018 survey, according to the National Crimes Records Bureau, the rape of minor girls increased by 82% in the year 2016, compared with the previous year. Sexual violence and brutal rape have been weaponized against minority women and children by extremist militant elements at the highest levels of governance. This weaponization of sexual violence targeting women and children is part of a more pervasive and systematic campaign targeting certain indigenous and spiritual traditions, minority communities, and their leaders, especially those from the linguistic and religious minority groups, and of dark-skinned people of indigenous spiritual traditions, and of ethnic native tribes, native Hindu tribes that have existed in India for millennia. One such indigenous spiritual tradition currently targeted for extermination by the neo-Hindutva extremist militants is the Hindu Adi Shaivite minority tradition in India. The women, children, and young girls of the ASMT community were the most vulnerable target of the neo-Hindutva extremists. The ASMT explicitly rejects extremism of all types. The extremist militant elements are opposed to ASMT's stance when it comes to the rights of women, including otherwise marginalized Dalit women and the rights of members of the LGBTQ and transgender community. The neo-Hindutva terrorists, despite Sorry for the technical glitch. As many of you have heard, the UN has recognized the persecution against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the entire Adi Shaivite minority tradition. As we have shared earlier, the ASMT community explicitly rejects extremism of all types. The extremist militant elements are opposed to the ASMT stance when it comes to the right of women, including otherwise marginalized Dalit women, and the rights of members of the LGBTQ and transgendered communities. The neo-Hindutva terrorists despise the Hindu women in monastic and priestly roles. The ASMT freely ordained women into sannyas, the monastic order, recognize the 11 genders, and perform specific temple rituals for gay marriage as per the 5,000-year-old indigenous spiritual scriptures. The ASMT represents one of the most progressive ideologies and is a target of persecution by the neo-Hindutva extremists. These are many of the reasons why the Adi Shaivite minority tradition has been targeted throughout for several decades for a target for persecution, and specifically the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who has been reviving all of these traditions, who has been empowering women, who has been empowering female sannyasis, who has been empowering female sannyasis to be in the role of priests, to be in the role of Rudrakanyas, to take care of temple administration. And these are the different reasons that the neo-Hindutva extremists have been targeting the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the entire ASMT community, and what the ASMT community stands for. As you may know, in the ancient Hindu tradition, some young girls who cognize themselves as the manifestation of the Divine Mother choose to never marry any human and dedicate themselves to the administration of the Hindu temples and worship the deity or god of the temple. There were many such monastic traditions, such as the Rudrakanyas, the daughters of Lord Rudra, and the Devadasis. Today, we have one such member of the ASMT female monastic order, Ma Nyanatma Swami, who is joining us to share her story of brutal sexual violence against her and other female monastic members. Many of you have known Ma Nyanatma Swami as the face of NTV, as the face of many programs, as a program coordinator, but few know the harrowing details of her sexual assault. Today, I invite Ma Nyanatma Swami to join us and share about her experience as a victim of the neo-Hindutva extremists. Welcome, Ma Nyanatma Swami.
Nithyanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurthyam Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasyaadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavathitham Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Nithyanandam. I welcome all the I welcome all the viewers who who are watching us and joining us today, watching us on the YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and on the two video conferencing. I'm sure many of you have very familiar with my face or seen me in various programs, and you may be very familiar with me. But today, what I'm here to share is not something that I have shared publicly. It's not something that I have shared openly. Maybe a few times. At this time, when the United Nations has recognized the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, especially with an emphasis on the persecution of the indigenous women, it has given me and given all my sister disciples, my Guru Bahans, it has given us all the courage and strength to come out in the open and share the horrific persecution that each and every one of us, we have gone through. The horrific persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and Kailasa. It is time we bring it out to the attention of the international community and the United Nations, recognizing the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Our beloved Swamiji and Kailasa is the first step towards this effort. Today, I'm here to share with each and every one of you one of the horrific, brutal incidents which made me a victim, which made me realize the enormity of the persecution, which made me realize the real face of the neo-Hindutva militant camp. We had knocked every door of every media house, hoping at least one of them would present the truth as it is. We had knocked every police station, every court, every judicial remedy or every judicial recourse that we could utilize, hoping to be heard, hoping for justice to be delivered. It took 10 long years. Our efforts have come to fruition today, thanks to the constant support and the guidance and the blessings of my beloved Guru, our beloved Swamiji, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. We were able to handle what happened to us physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. What we, which is me and my fellow sisters, Sannyas sisters and Adinavasis, what we have gone through. It is time that we share it with the world.
Yes. So, Ma Swami, can you share specifically about what you have experienced throughout the past 10 years, and specifically in the year 2012, when you faced your attack by the Neo-Hindutva gang?
Yes. And for those of you who are not very familiar, just a short, brief introduction to my path to where I am today. I'm originally from southern part of India, from Chennai, and born in a very traditional Hindu family. I did my schooling in India, and I did my bachelor's of computer science in Pilani. It was one of an esteemed institutions in India. Following that, I did my master's in computer science in the United States in North Carolina State University. And after that, I worked at Microsoft Corporation. It was my dream company to work for. So I was working there as a software engineer, which is when I was blessed to be known, to be told about the Supreme Court of Hinduism. I started watching some of the satsangs and discourses, like I'm sure most of us who are so attracted to the Swamiji's teachings on YouTube. That's how I started. And my journey continued, and I used to volunteer at the temple in Seattle, Swamiji's temple in Seattle. I used to volunteer there. And then in the year 2009, around the year June 2009, I came for my Inner Awakening program, which was a life changer for me. And it was in the Inner Awakening program, Swamiji revealed to me the true purpose of my life, which was to be a sannyasi of the Nithyananda Kailasa. It was an awakening for me, just that to know that this is the purpose for which I was born, and nothing else could fulfill me. Even though I had the best job and the best pay and the best life in America, and everything was there, but there was nothing to it because it was not my path. And once Swamiji revealed the true purpose of my life was to be a sannyasi of the Nithyananda Kailasa, I just knew this was it. This was what I was looking for all my life. So I went to the US around September 2009. I resigned my job, and I came and joined university in the year of November 2009, and I was initiated into the path of sannyas. And in March 2013, I was initiated into the Purna sannyas, which is the ultimate and the final state of sannyas. And I've been blessed to be living and have been personally trained by the Supreme Court of Hinduism since the year 2010. I've been directed under the direct guidance of the Supreme Court of Hinduism. I got an opportunity to coordinate more than 40 Inner Awakening programs. Various programs of Kailasa. And over the last 10 years, I've also been a part of, just witnessed the amount of persecution that my beloved Guru Swamiji had to go through. And the attack on Swamiji is not just the attack on him, it is an attack on Hinduism. It is an attack on Swamiji because he is protecting Sanatana Hindu Dharma. And in that process, the Neo-Hindutva militant gang not just targeted the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, but targeted the whole Adi Shaivite minority tradition, the whole community they targeted. And they aimed for a cultural genocide of this entire community. The entire race of Adi Shaivite minority tradition was attacked, and specifically focusing on the vulnerable sections of the society, which is the women and children. And Swamiji is the only Guru who has so openly fought for the rights of women, has revived the Hindu Sannyas Sampradaya, has revived the Rudra Kanya Sampradaya, has made us as priests and allowed us to worship or do the actual ritual in the sanctum sanctorum of the temples. And reviving all these were a part of Hinduism. However, over years of invasion and colonization, we have forgotten what was there in the original scriptures. And the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is reviving the most ancient tradition of Hinduism, which happens to be a progressive tradition by itself. So it is not that Swamiji is making Hinduism as progressive. Hinduism is already progressive. It is an ancient tradition which is already progressive, which recognizes 11 genders, and which has an extremely progressive stance on women, and allows women to take up monkhood, allows women to do the priestly duties and perform. And because Swamiji is reviving the Hindu sannyas female order and reviving the Rudra Kanya Sampradaya, Swamiji had been and is still a target of relentless persecution. And one of the ways the persecution actually came about is, by slapping, especially if it is a Hindu religious leader, slapping, false rape charges on the leader. And that's exactly the same strategy which they're using for many other spiritual leaders. They did it for Swamiji as well. And so in the year 2012, just fast forwarding it to the year 2012, there was an enormous success that we had in the United States, where the United States, the court of the United States, had exonerated the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. So this female false rape victim, who was falsely alleging that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism had raped her 100 times in 5 years, and all these baseless claims were completely dismissed in the US court, and she was actually a US citizen. She had complained in the US. So the US courts completely dismissed her claims and put a $500,000 defamation fine on the false rape victim. So there was an amazing success in the US, where they could not hold on to persecuting the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and the truth prevailed, the justice prevailed. And we wanted to share this news with the world. And at the same time, the US court had released the original medical records for the purpose of the Indian courts, and for the case that was happening and the persecution that was happening in India. The US courts had summoned the medical records of Hatti Rao, which very clearly showed that this false victim was a carrier of 4 highly sexually transmittable diseases. So these two, one side, the US courts have actually exonerated His Divine Holiness, and on the other side, the medical records very clearly show that whatever she is alleging is completely baseless, and the whole false rape case against the Supreme Pontiff was about to be quashed. This was way back in the year 2012. So a press meet was convened to share this truth with the world, to share the truth that the Supreme Pontiff has been exonerated in the US, where the false rape victim is a citizen of, and the US courts have slapped a $500,000 fine on this false rape victim. So the whole thing was done just to defame the Supreme Pontiff, and at the same time, her medical records very clearly show she is a carrier of a highly sexually transmittable diseases. So this was the reason why a press meet was called in the Bengaluru Adinam on the 7th of June 2012. And we wanted to share this exciting news with the world, so the world knows that what is happening to Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is a religious persecution. And he is not a rape accused, but he is a persecuted religious leader. So that's what we wanted to share it with the world. So we had invited the press and the media and all the media personnel to Adi Kailasha Serving Abhita to convene this press meet. And it was a very happy, momentous event, so that we could share this, so that the world can know the persecution that was slapped on the Supreme Pontiff. However, something completely unexpected happened on that day. So what really happened on the 7th of June 2012, when a press meet was called to share this news? We wanted to I wanted to play a video clip which shows what really happened.
Second illegal detainment of His Divine Holiness Paramahamsa Nithyananda. Why the press meet was called? It was the day when the US court had finally ordered the University of Michigan Hospital to send the medical records of false rape accuser R.T. Rao to the Indian police through the Indian courts. The medical records were a clinching evidence to prove the innocence of His Divine Holiness, as they would reveal R.T. Rao's 4 highly contagious and incurable sexually transmitted diseases, variations of genital herpes or herpes 2, which His Divine Holiness has never had. She claimed over 40 instances of rape where the disease is so contagious that it spreads even through saliva to the partner. As His Divine Holiness never had any such disease, it directly proved his innocence. To share this information, a press meet was convened at the Bengaluru Adhinam that very day. Suvarna Television, media mafia, occupied the first row with a planned multi-level agenda. The press conference started. His Divine Holiness himself started answering the questions from the press, producing necessary documents. As he was answering, Ajit from Suvarna Television started advancing towards him with a suspicious-looking package. Sensing danger to his life, the disciples of His Divine Holiness moved swiftly and stopped Ajit right on time. Ajit and his henchmen started a ruckus and kept trying to push the package and throw it at His Divine Holiness. Sensing danger, the sannyasis did not allow anybody to go near him. Ajit grabbed female monks to incite anger from the monks. Ajit then recorded their facial reactions and used it as a justification to get His Divine Holiness and his female monks arrested. Meanwhile, the other media men started filming. Not that they were going to report the persecution, they were only gaining footage to flash with their own lies as narration. Seeing the danger, assistants of His Divine Holiness took him through a different door and exited the hall, and they were able to save him. Finally, the disciples seized the package and handed it over to one of the secretaries of His Divine Holiness, Sri Nithyananda Pujananda Swami. Sri Nithyananda Pujananda Swami went to his office with the package. No sooner did he open the cover, the letter bomb exploded on him. A white dust spread all over. Not able to understand what it was and feeling dizzy, Sri Nithyananda Pujananda Swami drank some water and fainted.
Answering to the questions, one reporter called Ajit from Suvarna News Channel, having a suspicious object in his hand, and he was marching towards His Divine Holiness. He tried to throw that packet towards Swamiji. When he was stopped, as was expected, he created ruckus in that place. I intercepted that packet in my left hand. I was surprised to see that it had anthrax. The moment I opened, I became a victim of that anthrax. In a day or two, I saw my body suddenly develop the skin problems all around the body. The pimps started happening and the color of the body changed. I started feeling nausea and vomiting sensation. My stomach did not get well. It was almost like the whole body was in a kind of devastation. I was gasping for breath, not able to take proper breath. The doctor understood that it is a biological weapon and told me if next few days I would not have been treated, I would have died. This anthrax paper bomb is still existing on my body now also. The whole body skin is a problem for me. Ever since that attack, my stomach and my eating has not been proper. My breathing system is not completely synchronized after that attack on me. That's how these people used silent way, this anthrax paper bomb, to kill His Divine Holiness.
On the same day evening, Karnataka Navanirmana Sena returned as a larger group of 50 armed militants. Suvarna Channel sent its OB van to attack and live capture the criminal atrocities and to stage it as a persisting law and order situation around His Divine Holiness. The militants quickly climbed over the gates and landed inside, fully armed with dreaded weapons like chains, knuckles, rods and guns. The extreme violence, bloodshed and live attacks all done to hunt down and assassinate His Divine Holiness. They mercilessly chased and gang attacked each weaponless sannyasi. They inflicted fear, near fatal blows with iron rods and smashed huge stones on their heads while repeatedly shouting, "Get out of Karnataka or else we will kill you." They made obscene gestures by removing their own clothes. They ran after female monks, sexually assaulted them, touching them, robbing them, dragging them by their hair and tearing their saffron saris. They threw petrol bombs as they kept advancing inside the monastery. One of the bombs fell on the library, which housed books and ancient non-reproducible palm leaf manuscripts. Chief Administrator Sri Nithyananda Prabhananda was at the gate when the assassins entered. 4 of them knocked him to ground and jumped on him. Each one grabbed either one of his hand and a leg. The 5th person smashed a heavy stone on his head. His head broke with a 3 centimeter deep cut till his bone. Blood streamed down his face and body profusely. The media sadistically streamlined the ghastly scene. The assassins even obstructed his ambulance, delaying the emergency medical attention. He was rushed to the emergency ward of the hospital, where he underwent a life-saving head surgery with 33 stitches administered. He was in the ICU, and it took him a few months for a complete recovery. His wife and young son were completely devastated at the near-death survival. Assassins attacked Ma Nithyananda, a single unarmed female sannyasi, molesting and pulling her clothes. The attack is a haunting and traumatic experience for her till date. She suffered multiple injuries during the attack. A Karnataka Navanirmana Sena militant tears the saffron robes of a monk and attacks him. Sri Nithyananda Swami, a youth who had just embarked on his spiritual journey as a monk trainee, was brutally manhandled, kicked and attacked with rock stones hurled by the assassins. The camera he was holding was smashed. He received a blow on his face, causing profuse bleeding which required multiple stitches. Sri Nithya Yogananda, a male sannyasi, was attacked simultaneously by 4 militants. He received merciless blows and sustained heavy injuries. The attack left an everlasting impression on him. For every single resident, the mercenary mob had a group of live attackers trying to kill them on the sacred soil of love and
Yes, Ma. As the viewers have seen, this brutal attack that you and your fellow sannyasis have faced, you, Ma Nyanapaswami, specifically were targeted by 4 different men who were clearly surrounding you and attacking you. Can you explain a little bit more in detail about what exactly happened that day?
No summons you have received. No, he has filed a case against you and you are not receiving.
I do not know. No, I am not upstanding. I am not going anywhere. Any case, any summons comes to me, I am
The day of
attending
7th
properly.
of June
I never received
2012.
any summons.
A day that I can never forget in my life. after the morning press meet, suddenly it was around evening, like maybe somewhere around 4 to 5-ish, between 4 to 6. We heard some noises at the gate. I was in the monastery at that time, so I ran to the gate along with a few other Adinavasis. I used to be in the welcome center at that time. So I just rushed and ran to the gate. And I could see that the Neo-Hindutva, the militant gang, had barged into the monastery. And because just seeing their eyes literally blazing with anger and so much of violence, the way they even like jumped over the gates, and they were having like chains and revolvers and whatnot, seeing them, the actual security, we had security around the campus, that security got scared and they ran away. So there was no security of the Adina. And these people are, just breaking the door open and trying to jump. So we rushed to the main gate. And all of them
there were nearly hundreds of men jumping over the gate and coming in and attacking maybe a few sannyasis.
At least I could say easily 40 to 50 men when I went, and more were just coming in. So yeah, it could easily be about 100 men who had planned to attack. So I ran to the gate and I saw one of the male monks and male Adinavasi was getting hit, like very badly beaten. So I rushed to save him, or rushed to protect him. As I went behind, here you can see like the 4 men just completely cornered me. And one person like pulled my sari, and the other person like tore my blouse, and the other person one of them were coming so close. I mean, I could just see them like, predators who are like hungry for their prey, just like that, just that way, like so much of anger and violence. And, I was in a state of deep shock.
Yeah. So then, Ma, can you share exactly how they attacked you and what exactly the details of what you went through that day?
So they basically just cornered me, and this was actually being live telecasted on a national media channel. As female Hindu sannyasi being like sexually assaulted and being raped. One person was, just groping the body wherever he thought, and with a torn blouse and with a sari being literally being pulled away.
And while this is all being broadcasted for the world to see.
Yes. And that's exactly the same visuals. Just a part of it that we are showcasing now. Just a few seconds.
So rather than helping you, rather than trying to save you from this attack, these media men were filming this brutal sexual assault for the world to see, for your family, your friends, your fellow sannyasis to witness this horrific attack against you.
Actually, it was all a plan. So the Neo-Hindutva were hand in hand with the media. So the media, they came along with the media. So the plan was that they will have a live streaming van, and they will have the Neo-Hindutva, these gangsters. So the gangsters will go and beat and destroy and kill and murder and rape and whatnot. And at the same time, the TV channel will be live showcasing what's being happening in the monastery, just to kind of like, show, see, a female sannyasi, so far in our tradition, women are respected as divine. And especially if somebody is as a female sannyasi, there's so much of respect and reverence is given to them. And it can happen only in this anti-Hindu empowered ecosystem, where everything in the ecosystem is inherently anti-Hindu, whether it is the police or media or the judiciary, wherever you go.
So there's really nowhere that is safe where you can actually share your story, get justice for the brutal attacks that both you, your sister monks, and of course the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism have faced.
We actually went. We went to every, tried going to every media channel and wanted to. We sent a press release to all the, printed newspapers.
Why
and
are you not receiving any summons from women?
we
She has sent you
approached
both
police
summons.
and we approached the court. And
I don't know whether any someone has been sent.
I remember we tried everything possible, like human rights
No summons
associations.
you
We
have
tried, and we are still trying.
No, he has filed a case
And
against
it is
you.
at that juncture the United Nations has come out in the open, has recognized the persecution that Supreme Court of Hinduism has found.
I, Ajit, issuing you a summons on Vinay Bhargava. What are you doing here?
So after this brutal attack, what exactly happened? What were the events that preceded this attack?
The attack was a little concern. The impact that it left on me was huge. I was traumatized. Because we are in the Hadinam in a very extremely blissful, protected, caring ambience, and living under the protection of the Supreme Pontiff. And that evening, what happened? Completely tore me apart. It traumatized me. I was going through so much of trauma, heaviness, the mental heaviness. What is happening? Why there is nobody there to protect us? Why is there nobody there to protect the gurus and their organizations which are being targets? So anyway, after I became so shocked with what was going on, and I was just lying down on the floor, like on the road, like in the mud. I was just lying down there. After about maybe 15-20 minutes or 30 minutes, the Neo Hindutva gang, the militant gang, could not achieve what they came for. They basically wanted to find out the location of the residence of the Supreme Pontiff, and they wanted to assassinate Swamiji, and they were very, very vocal about it. They very clearly said this is what we want to do, and they couldn't find. So they started beating us and blackmailing us to see if they could get that information from us, which they did. So they felt like, okay, none of this is going. That's when monastic sisters, they came rushing to me. They took me to the residence, the apartment, and was giving some water. I couldn't talk to them.
This happened.
One question: why does this have to happen to Swamiji?
By the few rowdy elements
somebody who's preaching
came to
bliss
ashram
and oneness and Advaita
on 7th
and
evening
following the path
around 6
of
o'clock.
violence.
These rowdy elements
Why was this happening?
climbed up our main
Swamiji
gate
and all of this.
and came inside, and While I was talking to them, trying to
And
pacify
the only
and
thing
trying to
that
explain,
really brought
they
me
suddenly
back was
started
just
hitting us.
thinking about the Supreme Pontiff. How in 2010, how the Supreme Pontiff was illegally arrested and tortured in the
Holded my
prison and,
hands,
given cardiac
pushed
arrest
me
inducing
in the ground, and one person took a huge stone,
injections in the
one
name
heavy
of
stone, and
medical tests, and
thrown
so much abuse was done to
at me,
Swamiji's
and
body.
it
Yet,
hit me in the
Swamiji went through all of that powerfully.
forehead.
At every point in
But a
time,
big
taking
injury,
action
big
that
injury with a lot
that
of,
is right,
lot of
taking the right course of action, but not allowing that to, feel powerless and moving away from the space of Advaita and completion. So that's what Swamiji has taught us.
ನಿತ್ಯಾನಂದನ ಪಟ್ಟ ಶಿಷ್ಯರಾದ ಮನಿಷಾನಂದ, ಅಚಲಾನಂದ, ನಿತ್ಯ ಶಾಂತ ಎಂದಿನಂತೆ ಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳನ್ನ ಸಮರ್ಥನೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ್ರು. ನಿತ್ಯಾನಂದ ಅಂತವರಲ್ಲ, ಅವರು
was so against and anti-Hindu. And they just wanted to finish off Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism because each one realizes that the Supreme Pontiff is the last lamp of Hinduism. So Swamiji has been a consistent and target of this relentless persecution. So anyway, so I was taken and
So when after facing such a brutal attack, after seeing not just yourself but your fellow sister sannyasis, brother sannyasis facing this attack, of course Swamiji, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, facing this attack, what is it that made you decide to continue this life? If someone would normally feel that they would be in fear for their life to continue living this lifestyle and continue when there's constant threat, constant persecution, constant attack, what is it that kept you going? And what is it that gave you the courage to come and speak out today?
Swamiji. Because I have, I joined the monastery just a few months before the persecution broke out in the year 2010. And I have seen Swamiji, teach the signs of completion. But when the whole persecution happened and so much of injustice was being done to Swamiji, so many baseless claims and rumors and whatnot were slapped on the Supreme Pontiff. Swamiji, exactly like everything that he had taught us, we could literally see that in action, right? Every moment operating only from the space of powerfulness and never getting powerless and always knowing what to do next and keeping yourself calm and composed. And most importantly, see, one of the other strategies these new Hindutva use is to instigate you to do something criminal, right? First of all, you would not have done anything. They come and they attack. And when you respond in a fit of anger or when you respond impulsively, then immediately they trap you by filing a false complaint of a criminal complaint against you. This is their strategy. So Swamiji knew this very well. And from that time, Swamiji has told only one thing, right? Never resort to violence. Only follow the path of non-violence. Let us bring out what has happened to us to the community. Let us share with everybody what has happened to us so that we could get the international recognition of what has happened. So that's what we did. And it was only Swamiji who was the foundation for us to, he was the only anchor point that we all had. Just seeing Swamiji go through this and his commitment for his disciples and for his mission and for the revival, he had to go through so much of attack and persecution, and we felt like what we are going through is nothing compared to what the avatar of Parameshwar himself has been subject to go through. So that's what kept us going. That's what gave us the mental strength to just stand up and do what needs to be done.
As you said, what you faced is just one tiny aspect of what the entire ASMT community, all the females, and specifically the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has been undergoing, solely taking the brunt of this entire persecution and ongoing for the past 10 years without ever reacting with any sort of violence or any sort of anger, but just continuously enriching and sharing the story of what the ASMT community what Kailasa, what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has undergone. So Ma, after this attack, were you able to get any form of justice? Were you able to file a case against your attackers and get justice in the courts?
So that day after, I was able to compose myself. That very same day, I wanted to go to the police station. It was pretty late in the night, but I wanted to go to the police station that very same day. I didn't want just one more incident of this happening to me or to the Supreme Pontiff or to any of the Adinavas. So I went to the police. I registered a complaint. This was in the year 2012, and now we are in the year 2021. Till date, no justice has been delivered in this case.
So after 9 years you've been waiting, and the only sign of justice is this recognition by the United Nations for the ongoing persecution. But your individual attack, like many others, has still not gotten justice in the courts in India.
Sorry, I couldn't hear your last sentence. Can you please repeat?
I was just repeating that even despite the UN recognizing this ongoing persecution against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and Kailasa, the US courts have still not given justice to you or any of your fellow sannyasis or the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism.
We are not even expecting justice, man. Now it's gone beyond the point. We know very clearly that whether it is judiciary or whether it is government or whether it is media or the whole thing in India, we call it a media trial, because it is the media which directs and determines the flow of even the judicial matters. If any it's kind of more attention, and it has a lot of public reading and supporting the news. The Hindu leader and make Hindus believe that narrative is true, and basically it's like making people believe that it's a mad dog and then kill the dog, right? Because once you kill the dog, people will only feel, oh, you've done something good by killing a mad dog before it goes. And why? That's exactly the strategy that they do. Baseless allegations. They create just to somehow bring the attention on the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his followers, and then launch this huge attack and persecution, so that when there is a Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism or his disciples are in the prison, there would not be, public is already convinced that, there are a lot of controversies associated with this specific spiritual leader. And that's what the New Hindutva militants have been very successful in, making the Hindus believe their convoluted and wrong narratives and rumors.
Yes, ma'am. And now that we have gotten UN recognition, has it helped in your healing process? It helped in your feeling that your attack has not been that you've been silenced after your attack, that your story has been unheard, like the thousands of other women and children in the Adi Shaiva minority tradition?
We had approached Avenue only after 10 years now. The United Nations has recognized, and that's why we are extremely happy that United Nations has recognized the Kailasa nation, has recognized the persecution that was happening to Supreme Pontiff and to his disciples. And we did not want to stop. We were like, we are not, Swamiji had very clearly told, it is the responsibility of us as Hindus and as disciples. We need to showcase what has happened to us to the world. We need to be able to tell them and show them with evidences what has been done to us. And today it has come to fruition, and we're very, very, very happy for that.
Yes, ma'am. And it's one thing that everyone needs to know, all the viewers, all the Kailashans need to know, is that this story of Ma Nyanatma Swami is just one story of the millions of Hindu women, Hindu children who have undergone persecution, who have undergone attacks, rapes, assaults over the past thousands of years, and over the last decade, of all the women in the Adi Shaivite minority tradition who have undergone similar situations. You are just one voice who has come out to speak and share your story today. Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing your story and making the viewers aware of what all you and your sister disciples and the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism have undergone over the past decade.
Today I shared my story. We shared the videos of my attack. However, it is not just me. Like me, there are hundreds of sannyasis who are still there. And we will be continuing to share many of the persecution that each and every one of us have gone through. So in the upcoming segments, we will be having many other sannyasis who have been victims of this horrific persecution come online and share with all of us. Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you, Ma. Again. Thank you all, dear viewers, for joining us today and hearing the harrowing story of Ma Nyanatma Swami and the attack her and her sister sannyasis have faced in the 2012 attack on the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Please join us again tomorrow evening, at the same time. Thank you. Nithyananda.